Hey ladies, it's your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Before I left on my July sabbatical, can we just call it that? It's my time away with my family. I put together this rewind of my marriage series. So today we're going to hop into part one, which is talking all about comparison. And I think about this a lot, and it's probably because I'm on social media so often. It's so easy to get caught up in the comparison game, more so now than ever. You don't even have to hang out with other couples to get caught up in this comparison trap. And it is a trap, and it is not a good one. You don't want to be here. So let's dive into this rewind episode. Maybe you listened to it already, but it's a great reminder. Maybe this is one of those ones you're like, ooh, I needed to hear that again and share it with my friends. I would love to know how this episode spoke to you, what your golden nugget was from it. Be sure to hop on Instagram at Health, Life, and More for Women. Find the episode post and let me know. You can even share it in your story, tag the podcast. I would love to give you a shout out right on Instagram. All right, let's dive into the dangers of comparison in your marriage. Well, hey there. Welcome to episode 56. And if you are listening to this in real time, welcome to the first episode in October of 2020. Yup, we made it. It's October. Are you ready? I am. I love October. Side note, it's my birthday month, and I'm one of those people that celebrates all month long. And this year, as part of my month-long celebration, I actually thought I'm going to take the whole month to talk about one of my favorite topics, marriage. Yup. Something I'm really passionate about is healthy, happy marriages. Not perfect. Oh my gosh. Not perfect, but happy, healthy marriages. Marriages that contain two imperfect people showing up every day, showing up for themselves, showing up for one another, showing up for the family they've created, communicating, having good sex, going on date nights, and hopefully laughing more than they're yelling. Let's be honest, there's going to be yelling, but laughing more than they're yelling. Okay, so you are here for part one of a 4-part series for October. Are you ready? I am so ready. Let's just go and dive right in right now, because today I'm talking about the dangers of comparison in your marriage.
Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified life coach, mom of 4, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in. Let's get started.
So first things first, I just want to be really clear. I am not a marriage expert. I mean, I'm a marriage expert on my own marriage, but I'm definitely not a marriage expert on your marriage. And I would never pretend to be. I'm not going to sit here and say there is just one perfect way to be. There is one perfect way to be for me and my husband, David. There's one perfect way for you and your husband to be. What I want to do as part of this series is open up dialogue. We're big on communication here. We're not always great at it. We're not always gentle and kind like we desire to be, but we are good at communicating. We talk about everything. Good, bad, ugly, funny, ridiculous. I mean, we just talk a lot. And if that's what comes out of this, is that there's a piece, something, always call it a golden nugget. It was said to us by the pastor who did our premarital counseling, and it has literally stuck with me for 20 years. This golden nugget idea that you just pull one thing out that maybe spurs a conversation with your loved one, with your spouse, something that maybe you haven't talked about, or maybe you have thought about it but haven't quite figured out a way to bring it up in conversation. And now I'm giving you this in like, hey, so I was listening to this podcast and she was talking about comparison in marriage. And I want to tell you what I've been struggling with. It's that simple. You can totally use me as the in for the conversation. All right, but I am talking about comparison. And I know it could be really easy to hear me say things about my marriage and think, we don't do that. We're not like that. And therein lies the biggest problem. I think it's human nature to look at something and then look at our version of that same something. I don't have enough of that. I don't even have that. I have more than that. Oh, what I have is better, right? It's not always negative. However, comparison of any kind can do a lot of damage. So I think the most obvious comparison issue is when you compare another marriage to yours in a negative light. That really is the most obvious. When you believe there's something lacking in your spouse or between the two of you, and you look at another marriage and remember, oh gosh, guys, this is so key. Remember that what you see is not necessarily what is. So in your mind, you're comparing to something you don't even know the full story. I always say, you don't really know what goes on behind closed doors. Whether that's closed doors of the house, apartment where they live, or it's closed doors of their bedroom, it's closed doors of their conversations, how they talk to each other. They can tell you and project whatever image they want to. And I'm not talking social media. I'm even talking when you're sitting down, maybe with a good girlfriend, and you're hearing stories about their date nights, their sex life, the flowers he bought for her, all these things. You don't actually know what happens in the fullness of their story. And I'm not saying they have something going on. I'm not saying that they're having issues. That's not what I'm saying here. What we need to recognize is you are, first of all, comparing to a snapshot. You're comparing all these thoughts. You know all the ins and outs of your own marriage, and you're comparing it to a snapshot of somebody else's. Think about that just for a moment. It would be like, as a teacher, I look at my students' work and decide, you know what? I'm going to base their entire grade for the year off of one assignment they did in the middle of the year. That's ludicrous. Oh my gosh, parents, if I had done that when I was a 5th grade teacher, parents would have lined up at my door like enraged, as they should be. Like that one snapshot didn't represent the fullness of what that student had done. So in the same respect, when you compare a snapshot that you are allowed to see, that someone has opened the door a little bit to say, hey, look at this part, you compare your marriage to the snapshot, you start feeling that something's wrong. And even if you don't go to that place where you think something's wrong with your marriage, you start believing there's a lack. And oftentimes that kind of comes out of nowhere. You can tell when you've been caught up in this comparison is when you spend time or see another marriage, the snapshot, and you internalize it completely and come out on the other side with a totally new belief that there is something wrong, that there is a lack, that you don't have something the way that it is meant to be. That's right. You guys can't see my air quotes on that. Meant to be. Like that's created from this belief in your head that's created from the comparison. So you have to go back to the thought. You have to go back to even where that thought originated. Did it come from comparison? Did it just suddenly appear and show up after spending time with another couple, in talking with a friend, in scrolling through social media? Guys, I have to hit this. I have to talk about this issue because Comparison used to be just for, people you spent time with, right? You were around other couples and you would compare your marriage to theirs if you got caught up in this trap. I'm raising my hand. I'm raising my hand because that was me all the time, especially early on in my marriage, always doing that. But it really was just the other couples until I had this epiphany of the snapshot. Let me tell you, game changer. But I digress. We are exposed to so much more. I was married over 19 years ago now, but 19 years ago. And we did not have other couples other than the couples we hung out with to even look at their marriage. Nope. Now I can look at absolute strangers, air quotes again, guys, influencers, who even promote marriage, and I can be wrecked. If I'm caught up in this comparison game, it's amplified because of social media. All right, I was hesitant to share this, but I'm going to. Recently, a very influential couple, Rachel and Dave Hollis, announced their divorce. And I'm not sitting judgment. That's not my place. What I did, though, was take an opportunity to observe what happened because of that. So if you don't know, Rachel and Dave Hollis, Rachel is an author. They created the Hollis Company, which technically no longer exists as it was. But they promoted their healthy marriage. They talked about it on their morning show. They talked about it on their podcast. Up until actually just the week before, talking about having sex in the shower during coronavirus. I mean, these are things that they promoted. They actually even had a marriage conference, made money off of it. It was part of their business model. Well, they announced their divorce, and I decided to read through the comments. And this is what comparison does. There was comment after comment of women questioning their marriage. Quotes like, "If your marriage can't make it, there's no hope for mine." Whoa! This just not only upset me, it broke my heart. It fueled this 4-part series. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. It fueled this series. Because what happens is when we invest in comparison, that's what they were doing, investing in comparison. If my marriage is like Dave and Rachel Hollis's, I have success. And then when Dave and Rachel Hollis announced their divorce, what happens to all those people, mostly women, that's her audience, those women who invested in the idea? Ladies, it's a snapshot. It's a snapshot that you got to see, and that was revealed in the announcement of their divorces. They showed a snapshot that behind the scenes, behind the closed doors, it was not good. It was not healthy. It was not a happy marriage. That's what I'm saying. When you invest in this snapshot, especially when it's very clear on social media, you're getting a snapshot. You want to believe that what you're seeing is the full picture, but it's not. That really is a second danger of comparison, is you can completely fall apart. That might sound really dramatic, but I'm telling you, that is what happens. It just happened. I was witness to women feeling heartbroken in their own marriage because another marriage broke up. It was such a reminder of how dangerous comparison can be. The third danger I actually want to address, I kind of alluded to at the beginning. So when we think about comparison, we are thinking about this negative piece. Like I said, that's what comes to mind first. But there's also this other element of comparing your marriage to another marriage and thinking, we're better than them. right? Like, oh my gosh, did you hear how much they fight? Oh my gosh, did you see how he didn't get the door for her? I'm using examples from real life, ladies. Like, this is real life. And what happens is you actually set yourself up. It's like you're building this whole platform, this stage for you to fall off of, right? So when we compare in this, I'm better than you, I have more than you, any of those ideas, we are actually building a place of pride. And what happens when we have too much pride? We're going to fall. Something's going to happen. Life is going to happen. You know, I really thought I had an amazing marriage, and then I had freaking kids. And I'm like, is my marriage okay? Are we going to be all right? And I love my kids. I loved having kids. We both love our kids. But let me tell you, it changed the entire dynamic of our marriage. If I had just sat on that stage of, we're amazing, we have this, they don't, we do this, they don't, I would have fallen flat on my face. And really, it's still a reminder that you see a snapshot. That's all you see. You never really get the full picture. So really, with any of these, with this negative or positive comparison, comparing comparing people you know, comparing people you don't know, influencers, authors, actors, whoever it is, this is probably the golden nugget, right? We talked about golden nuggets. You see a snapshot, and that snapshot does not represent the fullness of anyone's marriage. So why in the world would we ever want to compare the fullness of our marriage to somebody else's snapshot? Oof, that's good. Could someone develop a time machine, head back to about the year 2003, and give me this nugget? Could someone please do that? I'm a couple years into being married. We haven't even had kids yet, and this about broke me. There were other young marrieds in my life, and the comparison game was so strong in my life. I kept hearing snapshots. I kept witnessing little bits of the door open and thought there was something wrong with my marriage. There was something wrong with me. There was something wrong with my husband. There was something wrong with the way we did anything and everything. It wrecked me for a very long time. And it found its way in when I had kids, and thankfully I was able to squash that. No longer living in comparison. I can sit and celebrate everyone and anyone else's marriage without it affecting mine. That did not happen overnight. That took a lot of work on myself, on my thoughts, and really getting to that root of what I believed about marriage and where that came from. Hey, I'm going to throw in an extra golden nugget here. Don't compare your marriage to your parents' marriage. What? I said it. Even if your parents had the most amazing marriage, it's still comparison. You are not them. It's dangerous ground to do comparison anywhere. If you are someone who struggles with comparison, I hope that you found something within this episode that will help you start working through and letting go of comparison, that you can find that root and be able to dismantle it. If you're like, hey, Jen, this was so great, but I don't struggle with comparison. Maybe you know someone, though, that would be unbelievably blessed by this episode. You know someone who just has felt defeated. Maybe it's by a couple they know. Maybe it's by an influential couple. And this episode would help them start to find their way out of that. Would you go ahead and share this episode. And also take the time to leave the review. If you're on Apple or even Podchaser and you can leave that review, and you can leave it specifically about this episode, it will help so many others see it, be able to hear it, and find their way out of this comparison trap. I'm so excited to come on next week for part 2. And we're talking all about arguing with your spouse. It's going to be so good. All right, until next week. Hey ladies, I want to let you know that I've partnered with Miss Sunshine Shades. They make the most amazing blue light blocking glasses. They make them for men, women, and your kids. So I know a lot of us have our kids at home staring at computer screens right now. These glasses are exactly what you're looking for. I love mine. I use them all the time, and so do my kids, especially my kiddo who has chronic migraines, no headaches at all. And she's on that computer for homeschooling a lot. If you go into the show notes, you can grab my discount code, which is Jennifer15, and get 15% off your order today. I think you're going to love them just as much as I do.